You know what's funny? People think the only way to make someone miss you is by disappearing. Wrong. It's not about silence. It's about presence. When you carry yourself in such a way that a man feels your absence, even when you're not around, that's when he misses you. And today, I'm giving you 7 powerful ways to do exactly that. Not games, not manipulation, just a smarter way to show up so he can't stop thinking about you. You want to know the truth. People don't miss time. They miss moments. Think about it. Have you ever had someone in your life that you didn't spend a lot of time with, but when you remember them, it's almost like they never left? Why is that? Because they left an imprint on you. They made you feel something you couldn't shake off. That's exactly how it works with a man. If you want him to miss you, you don't need to flood him with constant texts or always be around. What you need is to create emotional imprints that last even when you're gone. Now here's the secret. Men don't sit around missing the number of hours you spent together. He's not calculating minutes or days. What he misses is the way you made him feel, that one laugh you let out that caught him off guard, that playful look you gave him when you didn't even say a word, that moment when you encouraged him in a way no one else ever did. Those are the things that echo in his mind when you're not there. That's the imprint. Most people confuse presence with impact. They think if they're always present, always available, they'll leave a mark. But that's not true. Presence without impact is forgettable. You've probably experienced this yourself. Someone was around all the time, but if they didn't spark emotion, it didn't matter. You don't think about them. But someone who gave you one powerful experience, one memory that stirred something inside you, you remember them for years. That's the difference. So how do you create those emotional imprints? First, by being intentional. When you're with him, don't just exist in the moment, create the moment. Listen with your full attention, not distracted by your phone or your thoughts. Look him in the eyes when he's speaking. Respond in a way that makes him feel understood, not just heard. Men crave that kind of connection because it's rare. When you make him feel seen, you leave a fingerprint he can't rub off. Second, add uniqueness to your interactions. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be small, subtle, but it should feel personal. Maybe it's a playful nickname that only you call him. Maybe it's a little ritual between the two of you, like the way you say goodbye, or the kind of inside joke only you two get. Those little anchors stick to him. Later, when he hears that phrase or sees something that reminds him of that inside joke, he'll think of you. That's how you live rent, free in his mind without even trying. Another way to create emotional imprints is to associate yourself with positive energy. When you're with him, don't bring chaos, don't bring drama, don't bring exhaustion. Bring lightness, warmth, authenticity. That doesn't mean you have to be fake or over the top. It just means when you walk away, he should feel a little lighter than before. Men miss what makes them feel good. If being around you is refreshing, uplifting, even fun, he's going to crave that energy when you're not there. He won't even fully understand why. He'll just know something's missing. And here's the part most people overlook. Imprints aren't just about what you give him, they're about the balance you create. If you're constantly giving, constantly pouring into him, constantly chasing, you take away the opportunity for him to feel the loss of your presence. An imprint needs space to breathe. That means sometimes pulling back, letting silence do its work. Because when he has a quiet moment, when the noise of the world fades, that's when your memory sneaks back in. That's when he starts replaying those laughs, those looks, those words. That's when missing you becomes real. So don't waste your energy trying to be everywhere in his life. Don't fight for constant presence. Instead, focus on being intentional with the time you do spend. Create those moments that stick, that feel different, that feel alive. Because when you do that, when you become unforgettable in how you make him feel, you'll never have to worry about being forgotten. Because missing you won't be a choice. It'll be inevitable. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they want someone to miss them is thinking that constant presence creates value. They believe the more available they are, the more they'll be remembered. But here's the truth. When there's no space, there's no longing. When there's no pause, there's no craving. If you want a man to miss you, you have to pull back with purpose. And let me emphasize this, it's not about games, it's not about manipulation, it's about balance. Think about it this way. If you hear your favorite song on repeat all day, every day, eventually you stop appreciating it. It's still a good song, but it doesn't hit the same. Now imagine hearing that same song after a week of silence. Suddenly, it feels fresh again. That's how space works. It makes him realize your value because he has a moment to feel your absence. Without that gap, there's no contrast, and without contrast, there's no spark. Pulling back with purpose means you allow space, but you don't do it out of anger, resentment, or punishment. It's not the silent treatment. It's not disappearing in hopes he comes chasing after you. It's about creating breathing room so the connection can grow stronger. Sometimes, when you step back just a little, it gives him the clarity to step forward. The problem is, too many people confuse closeness with control. They think if they're not constantly talking, texting, or checking in, he's going to forget about them. But it works the opposite way. Overexposure dulls impact. Scarcity sharpens it. When you step back, you're giving him the chance to feel the contrast between when you're present and when you're not. And that contrast is what makes someone realize, wait, something's missing here. And I get it, pulling back can feel uncomfortable. It feels like losing ground. But it's not about losing, it's about positioning. You're not pulling away to create distance forever, you're pulling back so the connection can reset and realign. Think of it like a rubber band. The more it's stretched, the stronger the snap when it comes back together. Now, the key is purpose. If you pull back without intention, it comes off cold. He feels like you're withdrawing because you're upset or disinterested, and that shuts him down. But when you pull back with calm confidence, when you continue living your life, chasing your goals and staying grounded, he doesn't feel abandoned. He feels curious. He wonders where your attention went, why you're not as available as before, and in that wondering, he starts thinking about you more. That's the seed of missing you. This isn't about ignoring him or creating fake scarcity. This is about building natural space into the connection. Maybe it means not replying instantly every single time. Maybe it means giving him a day to initiate instead of you always starting the conversation. Maybe it means leaving a little mystery about what you're doing instead of giving him a play-by-play of your life. These small shifts remind him that your world doesn't revolve around him. And believe me, when a man realizes you have a full life without him, that's when he starts to value the moments he does get with you. The beauty of pulling back with purpose is that it creates tension, the good kind of tension, the kind that keeps a connection alive, that keeps anticipation in the air. Because the truth is, when something is too easy, too available, too predictable, the human brain gets bored. But when there's just enough space, just enough mystery, just enough anticipation, he leans in. He seeks you out. He notices the absence and craves the presence. So don't be afraid of space. Don't fear the pause. When you use it wisely, space doesn't weaken the bond, it strengthens it. Because in that quiet, in that gap, in that intentional distance, he doesn't just notice you're gone, he realizes how much he wants you back. Because sometimes the most powerful way to make him miss you is to give him the chance to. One of the most attractive things you can do if you want a man to miss you is to maintain a life outside of him. And I mean a full life, a life with goals, passions, friendships, and routines that don't depend on whether he's there or not. Because here's the reality, people don't miss someone who's always orbiting around them. They miss someone who has their own center of gravity. They miss someone whose world feels bigger than just them. Think about the people you admire most. They're usually people who are focused, busy, passionate, involved in things they love. They carry the sense of purpose that makes them magnetic. And when they're not around, you notice it because they leave a gap that isn't just about their presence. It's about the energy they bring into a room. That's what you need to embody. See, when a man knows that your happiness, your joy, your fulfillment all comes solely from him, it creates pressure. It doesn't feel like love. It feels like weight. And weight is heavy. Over time, instead of missing you, he starts feeling the urge to pull away just to breathe. But when you have your own passions, your own hobbies, your own people to see, you lift that weight. You shift from being dependent to being radiant. And radiance is what draws someone in. Men are drawn to women who don't need them, but genuinely want them. There's a big difference. Neediness says, I can't function without you. Value says, I'm thriving and I'd love for you to be part of it. When you're thriving, when you're living fully, he starts to realize that being in your life is a privilege, not a guarantee. That's when missing you becomes natural because he understands your world is moving whether he's there or not. And he wants to be part of that movement. And here's where it gets even more powerful. When you have a full life, the moments you do share with him become more meaningful. Instead of constant, mindless time together, you bring stories, energy, new experiences into the relationship. You have something to offer beyond just your presence. That variety keeps him curious. That independence keeps him on his toes. And when you're gone, he notices the silence because your presence was never dull. It was vibrant. It's also about respect. A man respects what he can't fully control. If you drop everything for him every time he calls, if you put your own goals on hold just to be available, he doesn't feel honored by that. He feels entitled to it. But when he sees you setting boundaries, making time for your career, your friendships, your health, your passions, he doesn't just respect you. He values you. And when he values you, he fears losing you. That fear of loss is what drives him to miss you when you're not around. The irony is, the more you try to hold on tightly to a man, the less he feels the urge to hold on to you. But the more you let him see that you are already whole, already fulfilled, already walking confidently in your own direction, the more he wants to keep up with you. He doesn't want to lose that energy. He doesn't want to lose that spark. He doesn't want to lose the woman who inspires him by the way she lives, not just by the way she loves. So don't shrink your life down to fit inside his. Don't pause your dreams, your friendships, or your growth just to make space for him. Build your life so strong, so full, so meaningful, that when you step out of his reach, he feels it instantly. Not because you were desperate for his attention, but because you were too unforgettable to ignore. Because a man doesn't miss the woman who revolves around him. He misses the woman whose world he desperately wants to be part of. When it comes to making a man miss you, one of the most overlooked tools is the power of subtle reminders. See, people think it takes grand gestures or dramatic moves to stay on someone's mind. But the truth is, it's usually the small, almost invisible things that stick the longest. It's not the vacation he remembers years later. It's the way you laughed so hard over something simple on that vacation. It's not the expensive gift. It's the inside joke you shared that nobody else would get. Those are the things that echo in someone's mind when you're not there. Subtle reminders work because they trigger memory without effort. Think about how a certain song can instantly take you back to a specific moment in your life. You hear the first few notes, and suddenly, you're not just listening to music. You're reliving a memory. That's the same effect you want to have on him. When you're gone, little pieces of you should be woven into his everyday life. Not in an obvious, clingy way, but in a natural, effortless way that makes you impossible to forget. It might be the way you say something unique that no one else says. Maybe it's the scent of your perfume that lingers on his hoodie after you borrow it. Maybe it's a phrase you repeat that later shows up in his own vocabulary without him realizing it. These small anchors become part of his environment. And every time he runs into one of them, it pulls him back to you. Here's the beauty of it. Subtle reminders don't just trigger thoughts, they trigger feelings. When he hears that song, he doesn't just think of you, he feels how he felt when you two were together. When he smells your perfume, it's not just about scent, it's about memory. It's about the emotion attached to it. That's why this works. We don't miss people for what they do, we miss them for how they made us feel. The danger is when you try too hard. If you force these reminders, it looks manipulative. If you flood his world with constant messages or leave things behind on purpose every time, it stops feeling subtle. It feels strategic. And when it feels like a game, the impact is gone. The best reminders are the ones that happen naturally, the ones that come from being authentic. That's what makes them powerful. And let me say this, subtle reminders don't always have to be physical. Sometimes it's the energy you leave behind, the way you encouraged him when no one else did, the way you challenged him in a way that stuck with him. Long after you're gone, those words replay in his head. That encouragement comes back when he's facing something tough. That challenge comes back when he's tempted to settle. And in those moments, he doesn't just think about you, he feels your presence even in your absence. What you're really doing is planting seeds. Seeds that don't grow immediately, but over time, they take root. And one day, when he's walking through his day, something ordinary will trigger that seed. A song, a phrase, a laugh. And suddenly, he'll stop and think about you. That's how you stay unforgettable without having to chase. That's how you take up space in his mind without saying a word. Because missing someone doesn't happen in the loud moments. It happens in the quiet ones. And if you can plant subtle reminders in those quiet spaces, he'll feel you even when you're not there. Because the strongest memories aren't forced. They're the ones he can't escape. If there's one thing that makes a man miss you more than anything else, it's this: you show value, not neediness. And let me be clear, there's a big difference between the two. Neediness says, I can't live without you. Value says, I choose to live fully, with or without you, but I'd love for you to be part of it. And those two energies create very different responses. One pushes him away, the other pulls him closer. Neediness drains, it suffocates. It demands constant reassurance. When every text, every call, every interaction comes from a place of fear, fear of losing him, fear of being forgotten, fear of not being enough, it stops being attractive. It feels heavy. And people don't miss heavy. People don't miss what feels like obligation. What they miss is what feels rare. What they miss is what feels valuable. Value, on the other hand, is magnetic. Value is confidence. Value is boundaries. Value is knowing who you are and refusing to shrink that down for anyone. When you show up in a man's life with value, he doesn't just see you as another person. He sees you as someone worth holding on to. And when you step away, even for a little while, the absence of that value is loud. It's undeniable. That's when missing you becomes inevitable. So what does showing value actually look like? It looks like consistency, your words matching your actions. It looks like standards, knowing what you will and won't accept. It looks like carrying yourself with quiet confidence, not arrogance, but assurance. It looks like respecting your own time, your own energy, your own worth. Because when you respect yourself, he learns to respect you too. Value isn't about trying harder to prove yourself. It's not about over giving, over chasing, or over explaining. That's actually just another form of neediness dressed up as effort. Value doesn't try to convince. It allows him to recognize your worth on his own. And believe me, when a man recognizes your value, you don't have to beg for his attention. He'll give it freely. And when you're gone, he'll notice the difference immediately. Here's the mistake so many people make: they confuse availability with love. They think that saying yes to everything, never setting boundaries, always making sacrifices, is what's going to make someone love them more. But it doesn't. It makes them take you for granted, because if your presence comes at no cost, he doesn't understand its worth. Value comes from rarity, from not giving yourself away so easily, from showing that your love, your energy, your attention are gifts, not obligations. And here's the beauty of it. When you show value, You don't have to manipulate. You don't have to play games. You don't have to act like you don't care when you actually do. You can care deeply, love freely, and still hold your standards. That balance is what makes you unforgettable. Because men don't miss someone who gave away their entire identity just to keep them happy. They miss the one who held her own, who loved without losing herself, who was strong enough to walk away if she wasn't being valued in return. At the end of the day, neediness screams, "Don't leave me." Value says, "I'll be fine if you do." And ironically, that's what makes him stay. That's what makes him think of you when you're gone. That's what makes him realize you're not just another person in his life. You're the person he can't afford to lose. Because a man doesn't miss the woman who clings to him. He misses the woman he knows he can never replace. One of the most underestimated ways to make a man miss you is learning how to end every interaction on a high note. And I know that sounds simple, maybe even too simple, but think about it. What sticks with you after someone leaves? It's not always the middle of the conversation. It's how they left you feeling when it was over. That's the last thing your mind holds on to. That's the last thing that lingers when the door closes, when the phone hangs up, when the text goes silent. If every interaction drags, if it ends with boredom, tension, or negativity, then that's what he associates with you. And guess what? He doesn't miss it. But if every interaction ends with energy, with warmth, with something light or meaningful, that's the taste that stays in his mouth long after you're gone. That's the feeling he replays in his head. That's what makes him want more. Think about a great movie. It can have slow parts, it can have flaws, but if the ending is powerful, you remember it, you talk about it, you want to see it again. Now think about a movie that drags on and ends flat. You don't think about it, you don't miss it, you don't recommend it. The same thing applies to human connection. The ending matters more than we realize. So how do you create that kind of high note? First, keep it light. If you're leaving a conversation, end it with laughter or something playful. Let him walk away with a smile on his face because of you. That smile becomes your echo. If you're parting after time together, leave him with encouragement or appreciation. Something that makes him feel good about himself or about the time you shared. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. Second, don't overstay the moment. Sometimes the strongest impact comes from stepping away before the energy dies down. Think about it. If you stay until the conversation feels forced, if you drag it out just because you don't want to let go, then the energy shifts. Instead of him wanting more, he's relieved it's over. But if you leave while the energy is still alive, he carries that energy with him. He's left curious. He's left thinking. He's left missing you. And here's the part that takes discipline. You don't always have to give everything in one sitting. Sometimes you hold a little back. Sometimes you leave the story unfinished. Sometimes you let the curiosity breathe instead of over-explaining. Because when there's mystery, when there's something left unsaid, his mind fills in the gap. And in that gap, you're the one he's thinking about. It's not about being fake. It's not about pretending. It's about being intentional with how you close moments. Ask yourself, how do I want him to feel when I'm not around? Because that's the feeling he's going to chase the next time. If you leave him feeling drained, he'll avoid the next moment. If you leave him feeling alive, he'll crave the next moment. That's the difference. So stop worrying about trying to control the middle of the conversation or trying to fill every silence. Focus instead on what happens at the end. If you can consistently leave him smiling, curious, or grateful, then you'll never have to wonder if he's thinking about you. He will be, because people always come back to the ones who leave them better than they found them. Because when every ending with you feels like a beginning, he'll never stop missing what he doesn't want to lose.